and it is a good day. A pretty significant milestone today, and that is 15,000 YouTube subscribers. So I want to put out a massive thank you to all of you. I said it before in our Patreon group. We've got a little private Facebook group for our Patreon supporters, but I want to extend it to everybody who watches. It means a lot to us, and I know that there is a lot of channels with 1 million subscribers and 100,000 subscribers, and 15,000 people might not sound like a huge amount, but 2 years ago we were seriously looking at having to move on all our animals. We had no work. COVID basically made that all the work that supports our animals disappeared, and we were lucky. I'm so glad that we'd started a YouTube channel years before, but we're lucky that we were able to grow that to a point where we're not going to be millionaires, but it meant that we've managed to keep the animals that we've got, and it's because of you guys. So you guys watching, subscribing, sharing with your friends, our Patreon supporters, it's amazing. It means a lot to us, and to reach 15,000 is crazy. It's a great milestone, so I'm very, very happy with it. I'd also like to give, before we start getting some stuff out, a shout out to Perth Reptile Relocations. We've got a bunch of Patreon supporters, but Perth Reptile Relocations is sort of our channel sponsor there, our biggest one at the moment. So if you're interested in snakes, snake catching, want to see some videos of Western Australian snakes, check out Perth Reptile Relocations on Facebook. They've got some cool videos catching dugites and Western tiger snakes and stuff like that. All right, we'll catch up on some comments, and then we'll get some stuff out. Nice one, Nico. Thank you very much, Brian. Stuart, how are you, mate? Great to see word spreading. Let's get the message. That's it. I'm not happy about 15,000 just because it's great to have 15,000 people watch me. It's great that 15,000 people are interested in Australian wildlife, but also the bigger we get, the more able we are to reach zoos and wildlife parks and say, look, we got 100,000 people who are going to watch this. Would you let us film with your platypus? Or can we film with your Komodo dragons? Or who knows? The bigger we get, the more we're able to do that. So it's not about, look how popular we are. It's about, being able to do more education, keep this snowball rolling. So, it's the first step, but it's a pretty big thing to us. Basil, how are you? Sammy, g'day. So proud. Thank you very much, Tamara. Dingo, how are you, Biscuit? What a legend. Congrats on 15,000. Thank you very much. How's your live stream? What are you getting in with tomorrow night? It's got to be Mamba night. I'm sure you all know Dingo. Dingo's a good friend of ours. He's great YouTube. So if you watch us, you probably already watched Dingo, but if you don't, get on it. But yeah, we're very happy, Dingo. 15,000 is a great thing. All right. When Australia Zoo lasso crocodiles, why does Australia put the saltwater crocodiles in crates? I've heard crates are 16 feet or 6 meters long. Probably not 6 meters long. I've not been in Australia Zoo, but they wouldn't have any 6 meter crocs. They would have a few, maybe at the 5 meter mark. Every crocodile in captivity, people claim is 5 meters, but not many really are. Australian wildlife is awesome. You're awesome. Thank you very much. Get the stream to 100. We need the more people watching, the better. But I'm happy with anybody that watches. Really, it means a lot. All right, maybe we'll get out our olive python. We'll get out Natasha. Would you like to meet the biggest snake we have? Young, I've never heard of that. So yeah, the reason we move crocodiles in crates, particularly long distances, it's just a safe way to do it. They usually have a foam pad at the end of the box because crocodiles are notorious for bashing up their noses a little bit. Don't forget to like the video. That's right. Thank you, Tamara. While you guys are all pressing the like button, we'll get out BW or Natasha. I've got in the habit of calling her BW because she's named after the Black Widow, and for very good reason. But this here is Natasha. Baby girl, she is. Where's she heading? So, Natasha here is our olive python. So this species here is the second, or probably the third longest species of snake in the country. And she's not a big one. These guys have the ability to reach 5 meters plus in some parts of the country. But 3 meters is still pretty average. It's like people. If you tell people that a snake can reach 6 meters, you pull out it's like eastern brown snakes. I'll get a brown snake out later. And every time I pull out a brown snake, people say, oh, how old, how much more is he going to grow? And it's because in a book they've read that they reach 2 meters. So if I pull out a 1.5 meter snake, they assume he's still growing. If you read the Guinness Book of Records, people grow 8'4", and no matter how much I eat, I'm never going to get to 6 foot. I might get 6 foot wide, but never get 6 foot tall. So snakes are a bit like that. Even though a species can get big, not when every individual is going to get that big. But Natasha here, she's over 3 meters now. She's pretty lean. These guys do have a propensity to be obese in captivity. 9 out of 10 olive pythons you see in captivity are, in my opinion, morbidly obese. And I think the reason for this is basically keepers. Nobody buys an olive python. It's like reticulated pythons overseas. Nobody buys a big snake wanting it to be little. Just like if you buy yourself a Great Dane, you don't buy it hoping you end up with a little Great Dane. You want it to be a big dog. So people buy an olive python and they feed it and feed it and feed it and feed it. But if its parents came from, say, Darwin, where they're smaller than Western Australia, no matter how much you feed it, it's not going to get bigger. They're just going to get fatter. And the vast majority of olive pythons are morbidly obese because of that. So I keep them pretty lean. 15,000, congrats. Thank you very much, Tess Yu Han Enon. I'm not even, yeah. Thank you, though. Do I have a huntsman? No, I don't have any huntsmans as pets. I've got half a dozen walking around the house, though. Great to see some new viewers. Yeah, we do have some new people tonight. Help save the wildlife in bushland. That's a fantastic YouTube name. Yeah, Natasha. So she's named Natasha. She's named after the Black Widow from Marvel. And the reason for this is she was given to me. She came from another demonstrator, and she got her from a breeder. And she wasn't a very good breeding snake because she ate 3 different males that she was paired with over the last few years. So she doesn't have love on her mind. She's eaten 3 boys. Do I know where Brutus is coming from? Because of his white nose? I don't know if Brutus has a white nose. I think Brutus has a dark nose. He's not the brown-nosed sort of type that you get. Like far north Queensland, they're usually brown-nosed. To be honest, I'm usually looking at this end of Brutus and you're looking at the other end of Brutus. So, I don't know. We'll get him out in a minute. How's the wildlife going? The wildlife's doing well. Unfortunately, we're in our 7th lockdown, so the wildlife's not going to be getting out a great deal over the next few months. I'm starting to, I don't want to sour things down. It's a good day. We've hit a milestone. But I am starting to get worried that about 70% of our income is usually made over September, October, November, which is the agricultural show season. And I haven't had the big shows, the Ballarat show, the Swan Hill show, the Eden Hope show. I haven't had those ring and cancel yet. But they've all said they're waiting for their next meeting to decide if they cancel. And historically, last year, they all waited to decide what the Warrnambool show did. And the Warrnambool show's already said they're going to cancel. So, or I've been told by a committee member. So I'm worried that we're going to lose all our summer work. What happened with the bedongs? I know. I had a pair of bedongs organised, or trio bedongs. But we got locked down. We haven't been able to leave the state. Dingo! Biscuit! Thank you very much, mate. So yeah, we had a pair of brush-tailed bedongs, which they're extinct in Victoria. But I was so looking forward to getting these, and it might still happen. But unfortunately, they're in another state. We're locked down. We're not allowed into this state. And this lady rang and said, look, I'm not sure how much longer I can hold them. And I can't get over there. They won't let me across. So I might end up not being able to get them. If I can't, I've still got the male organised. But males are easier to get than females. So, you know, I still want to work towards getting brush-tailed bedongs, but whether this lady can hold these 2 females for me, help save the wildlife. Thank you very much, guys. You know, the super chats and all that, it's amazing. And what it basically goes towards is a couple of things. It works fantastic to help keep our lights on here. It means a lot. But also, we're planning trips once we can get out of the state and people want us. We want to go to Adelaide. We've got to go and film some koalas. Some of our Patreon supporters are desperate to see more koala videos. So I'm going to visit a koala hospital in South Australia. We've filmed a bunch of videos. So if you do want to see koala stuff, we've got some koala stuff. But some of our Patreon supporters really want some more koala stuff. We're going to go there. I've got some trips to Sydney. I've got a friend who keeps birds of prey. So he's got an eagle I can have sit on my hand and do an eagle video and all sorts of cool stuff. So we're going to get to Sydney. Hopefully we can film a parenti there. And I've got some friends up in Queensland, both in Brisbane, who we can film some cool exotic stuff. Alligators and capybaras and boa constrictors and all kinds of stuff. So we've got to get to Brisbane and Cairns, which is I started working with wildlife up in North Queensland. A lot of my friends have moved from Townsville to Cairns. And a friend there reckons she might be able to get me in an enclosure with a Komodo dragon. But, so that's what we're squirreling away our Patreon money for. If we can, make ends meet and keep the lights on with no shows on this summer. So, yeah. Patreon supported videos about the koalas will be nice. Yeah, I've just got to be able to get there. In Brizzy, yeah, so where we're going to visit Diagula Wildlife Park is between Brisbane and the Gold Coast. So, bro, getting huge donos. Congrats. Thank you very much. What other animals are extinct in Victoria? Do you want to breed them and reintroduce? You need sponsors to work such progress. So, thanks, Natasha. So, as far as breeding to reintroduce, it's a little bit more complex breeding to reintroduce. The vast majority of, privately owned animals kept by, you, me, Joe Blogs, will probably never get used to reintroduce into the wild. Because even most zoo stock, most animals kept by zoos and wildlife parks don't meet the standards to be released into the wild. Zoos want to know exactly where they come from. A great example would be the Woma python. I don't know if you guys know Woma pythons. It's a 3 to 6 foot long snake, middle of Australia in the desert. It's got a bunch of stripes on it. Woma pythons. In some places, they're pretty common. As pets, they're, you can buy them for $200. But in South Australia, in the Strzelecki Desert, they're endangered. So this is a great example. We can't just take people's pet Woma pythons and release them out there. They wanted to release more Woma pythons into the Strzelecki Desert. So they went to the Strzelecki Desert, they caught Woma pythons from the Strzelecki Desert, bred them in captivity and released them. And this is because if you take Womas from, Rockhampton Downs in Western Australia, or from Western Queensland, the Brigalow Belt, or from the Tanami Desert, they're different. They've got different colours, they're different sizes, they're suited to slightly different environments. So they might not do as well, or they might end up out-competing the colour morph and the shape and size that's there. So that's why privately owned stuff can't be used to re-release. This doesn't mean that privately owned animals don't have an educational benefit. They certainly do. If we kept brush-tailed bedongs, I'd like to keep them, breed them. We want to hand raise one to use, in shows and teach people about native Australian wildlife, especially because they used to be found. There's fossils of them, like 40 minutes from my property. So they were here in Western Victoria. So it'd be cool to teach people about. But on top of that, private people might not be able to release them into the wild, but we can breed them. We can write notes on what we do and how we bred them. And those notes can be used by facilities that do have animals that have the stud book required to release them into the wild. Speaking of the Tanami Desert, in the future content like traveling, searching for animals like Cody and Dingo would be spectacular. I'd love to go and do some more traveling. At the moment, obviously, it's hard. We're not allowed to travel much. But yeah, we've got a bunch of road trips we want to do. We want to get out and visit all sorts of cool stuff. Australia is a little bit tricky. There's pretty strict rules about catching stuff in the wild here in Australia, but we are working on it. So yeah, I'd love to do some more trips. Herping up through Central Australia, stuff like that. When Dingo gets over here, we'll be sure to catch up and do some cool stuff as well. Does Australia Zoo get many calls when rescuing many creatures, carpet pythons, slither into houses? Not being connected with Australia Zoo, I couldn't tell you. But I'm sure they get a lot. I know the Wildlife Hospital, ran by Australia Zoo, is a very busy facility. What's the best tip for people new to venomous keeping? Things like they don't teach in a relocation course. Good question. Hang on, we'll put Natasha on back. Ooh, if I can get you off my arm. Oh, she's a hugger. Also, guys, I should have said, we said it on our Patreon group, we've got a new animal here tonight, but we'll leave her till last, because she's cute and fluffy, and if I cuddle her now, all the other snakes will want to eat me. But if you stick around to the end, we're going to get out the newest, cutest, fluffiest animal that we have. She's secretly trying to eat me because I'm a male. That's right, she's the widow. So yeah, getting started with venomous snakes. Relocation courses are they're good. I don't want to, I haven't done one, but a lot of snake catchers have. The thing is, if you're relocating snakes, particularly in somewhere like Australia where, you've got insurance and it's just catch them, put them in something. It's all about safety and speed. Most relocation courses will give you the basic instruction to hook a snake, put it in a bin, and when you get to the place, tip it out. There's no more handling than that. If you're looking at keeping venomous snakes, you can start off with that, and that will basically be a way that doesn't require a great deal of commitment. You know, you can do a course and decide, look, this isn't really for me. Fine, doesn't have to be. Not 99% of people probably shouldn't be keeping venomous snakes. We'll get out of tiger snake while we talk about it, eh? I forget what I'm talking about all the time anyway, so why not forget with a venomous snake in my hand? I don't know if Rami's here, but this is Rami, the tiger snake, not Rami, the Patreon supporter. So, besides relocation courses, what they're not going to teach you is some of the more hands-on stuff. So, you know, things like head pinning, restraints, things like that, you're not going to learn in a relocation course. And really, in some ways, you should. You know, I've been to snake call-outs, and I don't do many snake call-outs now. But I've been to snake call-outs where a snake stuck in bird netting, so you have to pin them. You know, you've got to pin them, restrain them while you're trying to cut away the netting. Stay that way. Go look at the people. So, yeah, I think a lot of that stuff basically comes with time. Nobody can learn all that stuff and become proficient on it in a 24-hour course. So if you're looking at keeping venomous snakes, I would join a herpetological group. You know, the Victorian Herpetological Society or the Hawkesbury Herpetological Society, whatever state you're in, there'll be a club. Australia's very, very good with reptile clubs, and I'm assuming the rest of the world's pretty similar. Within that group, go to a couple of meetings. You know, don't expect people to take you on. People sometimes get disheartened. They go, look, I've been going to reptile clubs for 6 months, and nobody's just invited me to their house to handle venomous snakes. I don't blame them. If I have a lot of people message me saying, could you teach me how to handle venomous snakes? And personally, I won't teach anybody how to handle venomous snakes. I don't feel cut out for that responsibility. But if somebody came to me and they said, look, I already had the basic experience with venomous snakes, I'd be like, look, you can probably come and help do some cleaning and feeding and just get more hands-on time, more exposure. Bit different. So, you know, don't expect people to, but if you join a reptile club and make it known that venomous snakes is your real interest and you seem responsible, you know, there's a lot of cowboys, sounds hypocritical, me with my big old Cobra hat, but there's a lot of cowboys and venomous snakes who are in it because it's dangerous, not because they're passionate about venomous snakes. So, you know, get into it for the right reasons. There will be somebody who will be willing to give you a little bit of a go, get you some hands-on experience with their snakes. And that way you're going to find out what interests you as well. You don't want to get things just because, you know, they're available. You can pick up inland taipans so much easier than you can some other reptiles, and it's not necessarily the best thing to start off with. So, yeah, I don't know if that's helpful, but there you go. I'm going to pop this guy on the ground for a second so I can read a comment. Rami, stay. Good boy. Sorry you're late. Don't be sorry. Just be happy you're here. Help save the wildlife. Hello again. Thank you very much, mate. Rami, that video the other night was nice a tiger, much like Spitfire. Yeah, no, Spitfire is unfortunately deep in shed. He's looking ugly at the moment. Dingo demonstrated that before, Nick. So I'm not sure what that part is. I said stay. Hang on. I'll put this back so I can... So while I got the tiger snake out, rather than put him away, I'll go through the comments in a little bit. But while we got the tiger snake out, we may as well have a bit of a chat about Rami. So Rami is one of the 2 tiger snakes that we have here. We have, 3 tiger snakes that we have here. We got Rami, Spitfire, and a third one who doesn't really have a name. But the tiger snake is about the 4th, 5th most venomous snake in the world. It's responsible for 17% of Australian snake bite, and up until the 1930s, 1940s. Was responsible for more deaths than any other snake in the country. Today, that honour belongs to Eastern Brown. We'll get out in Eastern Brown in a little bit. But, you know, when people hear about this, tigers used to kill the most people and now browns do. It sort of sounds weird. It's like tiger snakes suddenly got nice and brown snakes got mean. But prior to the 1940s, the Australian population was, you know, basically locked to the coast. There wasn't many people inland. After the 1940s, people returned home from the war. And a lot of soldiers from the First World War were given blocks of land in inland Australia. So suddenly towns like Dubbo and Burke and stuff like this started growing. And you had a lot of people move into brown snake habitat. On top of this, you had a lot of people returning that didn't want to move out there, but they needed work. So you had all this manpower coming back from the war. And we took huge wetlands on the eastern coast of Australia. And with all this manpower, we drained them. So all the frogs disappeared, which meant all the tiger snakes disappeared. And brown snakes moved in. So brown snakes now kill a lot more people than tiger snakes, but it's a numbers game. I talked about it in our video the other week on what makes a snake dangerous, and in my opinion, distribution or proximity to people is possibly the biggest thing that make a snake dangerous, or one of the biggest things. And the brown snake now just has a huge proximity to people. But the tiger snake, unlike the brown snake, is a live-bearing snake. These guys give birth to live young. And this is what really helps them live in cold climates. So this snake will live, pretty high altitudes, up to sort of the snow line in the high country. They're one of the only 3 species of snakes found in Tasmania. In Tasmania, you've only got 3 snakes. The tiger snake, the copperhead, and the white-lipped snake, all live-bearing snakes. And in my area, if I go out catching snakes a day, I'm going to catch maybe 60% tiger snakes and 40% copperheads. It's basically all we get down here. It's too cold, too wet. But they're very cool snakes. You want to say hello, Rami? That being said, it's a pretty nasty bite. I did a video, 2 months ago? Interviewing a friend of mine, Ben Avery. He was talking about his snake bite experience. He was bitten by his pet tiger snake. And he had 2 or 3 blood transfusions. His kidneys are basically shot. He was on kidney dialysis for 10 days or something like this. And he was told that he's probably going to need a kidney transplant later in life. So they basically, they're not cytotoxic. They don't break down tissue, but they break down like muscle tissue on the inside of your body. There's a scientific word for it, but they break down basically muscle tissue, and that goes through your bloodstream, and your kidneys have to filter it out. And it puts so much strain on your kidneys that they give up. So yeah, it has the potential to be a very nasty bite. Do I have taipans and mulgars? I do have mulgars. I've kept both species of taipan, but I don't have any taipans at the moment. But yeah, I do have mulgars. I'm not going to get her out tonight. She's been fed. How are the black snakes? Yeah, so we do have one black snake that have I got him out? We've got a red-bellied black snake here. I might get him out again later. We got him out on TikTok, I think. But I've got the spotted black snakes as well. YouTube's cutting out. I'm sorry, guys. Between tigers, eastern browns, and death adders, what's my favourite? Tiger snakes by far. I like my eastern browns, but if I wasn't doing educational displays, I'd probably stick to tiger snakes and black snakes. They're my personal interest. I like big, fat, mellow, cruisy, venomous snakes. I don't know. Rami is a handsome boy. Rami is a cool snake. Spotted black snake. Yeah, so the spotted black or the blue-belly black is another species that we keep here. I'm not going to get one out tonight just because, yeah, she's been fed. But your pug ate a lizard 2 days ago. Poor lizard. Do I have copperheads, white-lipped snakes? No, I've got a copperhead. Not in this room, but I can get him out another week. And I don't have any white-lipped snakes. White-lipped snakes, they're very cool. They're very hard to... They only want to eat lizards. So, what type of food do tiger quolls eat? In captivity... meat, rats, chicken, that sort of stuff. Don't you like playing with the death adder daily? Yeah. I do enough dealing with that. Wait, why haven't you seen a copperhead? Because he doesn't like being handled. If I handle I've got a copperhead here, but if I manhandle him too much, he gets real funny and he doesn't want to eat. And yeah, he came from somebody who kept him in a really big pit. So he's basically living as a wild snake. So I use him when I'm talking specifically about local snakes and snake safety, but I try not to take him out just for the sake of taking him out. But yeah, we do have him. But yeah, he goes off his food and stuff like that. Are there any spitting species in Australia? No. So the only spitting snakes are, you've got the cobras and they're all cobras, but within the spitting cobras, you've got the Asiatic spitting cobras, you've got the African spitting cobras, and then you've got the ring calves, which is in Africa, but not directly related to the African spitting cobras, which is pretty cool. So spitting in cobras has evolved separately on 3 different occasions. And though that evolution of spitting is basically all coincides with the evolution of 2-legged hominids. So when you had 2-legged monkeys like us walking around, and humans have a propensity from the Stone Age to mob and kill snakes. So a snake doesn't want to have to bite to defend itself. Biting is a lousy method of self-defense, because if a snake has to bite me, chances are, or you, or a dog, or whatever, if a snake bites something, odds are it's going to be dead before the venom kicks in. So spitting can keep that danger at range. So the African spitters evolved spitting millions of years before the Asian spitters, and the theory is that they evolved with hominids, and hominids didn't arrive till Asia till much later. You can also own stick insects. Yeah, lots of people in Australia keep stick insects. Congrats on 15,000 subs. Thank you very much, Dave. I'm still wondering what group of Tassie Devils is called. I don't know. Apparently solitary animals, but they may not have group names. Somebody's come up with a group name for everything. Wombats are solitary, but apparently they're called a wisdom of wombats. So, which is funny. I love wombats, but wise is not how I would describe them. Why was my redback spider brown and orange? She's black and red. It's just bad lighting. And she's a dull red. She wasn't like a bright sort of candy red. I had a few, she's not mine. She's just a redback spider from my firewood pile outside here 20 meters away. I just collected the biggest looking one. And she was a little bit dull, but she was big enough that you'd see her on a camera. So, is a tornado of Tassie Devils. A wisdom of wombats. I do like a wisdom of wombats. It makes them seem a lot more relaxed than they are. Can I keep Boiga? Yeah, we can keep Boiga. I don't have them, but we can. What about a pic from afar? I'll get you a pic tomorrow. I've got to clean him today or tomorrow or the next day. So, what does burning feel like? Is it a burning sensation? I've never been bitten by a venomous snake. I've been present when 2 people were bitten, and one of them turned out to be a dry bite. But a friend of mine, I was next to this man while he was bitten by an inland taipan, the most venomous snake in the world. I basically had to apply the bandage, and he didn't feel anything. He was telling me, he's I'm pretty sure this is a dry bite. And he got to hospital, and he spent 11 days in hospital. So he didn't feel anything. But that being said, the types of venom vary wildly. So cytotoxic snakes that destroy muscle tissue, they're meant to be very, very painful bites. So what happened with the wombats? What do you mean what happened with the wombats? We have a wombat. Should be a chubby butt of wombats. What happened to the other ones I had? Do you have different python species? Stimson's python, black-headed python. I don't know Stimson's, black-headed or water pythons. Never been bitten by a venomous snake. Yeah, so I'd like to keep it that way. Thank you very much. Tikapa? Tikapa? Whatever it is. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate the super chat. All right, so in between chats, maybe we'll get out. We'll get out a brown snake. Do you want to see a brown snake or do you want to see some lizards? You let me know. Do I know about Australia's venomous freshwater fish? I don't know much about venomous freshwater fish. A friend of mine used to keep stonefish, but they're marine. Don't really know. Brown, lizard. Who have we got tonight? We've got Rover. Kyle. Hi, are frillneck lizards, dragons hard to socialize? Like with each other, they're pretty territorial. So males will definitely beat the hell out of males. We're going to keep one male to enclosure unless you've got like a big enclosure. As far as to socialize with people, they can certainly get tamed. Like I've had frillnecks that I can take to shows, but they're not like a bearded dragon. They're a little bit higher stress, and also they've got a narrow. They're not as tough. So a bearded dragon I can take, for a 2-day trip doing schools and shows, and it can live in a plastic tub. The frillneck lizards want to stay humid and they want to stay warm. So they're not something you'd take out every single day just because they're cool to take out. But yeah, most frillnecks can still learn to come out. Lizard, brown lizards. All right, we'll get out a lizard and then we'll get out a brown snake. Sorry, tomorrow. We'll get a lizard that I haven't got out for a while before. Hang on. This is. Get your tank over. This little fella hasn't been out for a while. This is Randall. So Randall is a pink-tongued skink. So everybody who knows anything about reptiles knows blue-tongued skinks. But in Australia, we have 2 families of blue-tongued skinks. We've got the Taliqua genus, which makes up all the blue tongues you know. Shinglebacks, blotched blue tongues, eastern blue tongues, western blue tongues, Centralian blue tongues, all that sort of stuff. But then we've got the family what we call Cyclotomorphus, which is the slender blue tongue skinks. And just to make it more confusing, the most famous of the slender blue tongue skinks is the pink tongue skink, who is born with the blue tongue, but his tongue turns pink as he grows up. So there you go. Slender blue tongue skinks with a pink tongue. The pink tongue skink. So the pink tongue skink is found from sort of northern New South Wales in wet climates. So on the east side of the Great Dividing Range, they follow that sort of temperate to subtropical, eventually up to tropical rainforest. They live in damp places. They live almost entirely off snails and slugs. And unlike the blue tongues, these guys are good climbers. They're fairly long, fairly narrow. They've got a semi-prehensile tail. They're almost the closest thing you can keep in Australia to the Solomon Island skink that everybody sees with other keepers on YouTube. Have I heard of Coyote? I've heard of him, but I don't really watch too much of his stuff. There are pygmy blue tongue skinks. There are. The pygmy blue tongue skinks found near Adelaide. The pygmy blue tongue's really cool. They were thought to be extinct, and they were only rediscovered when a few university students found an eastern brown snake dead on the road and decided to cut it up and see what they found inside it. And they rediscovered the pygmy blue tongue in its stomach. It was dead, of course, but that basically prompted a huge look for them, and they've discovered that they still exist. They're still very endangered. Can Cunningham Skink? Yeah, I can show Cunningham Skink. Where's Prickle? Right. So this is Randall, and this is Prickle. So Prickle is a Cunningham Skink. So while Randall's sort of a subtropical, moist climate species, Prickle here, the Cunningham Skink, found like from way up New South Wales in sort of like the sandstone country, basically rocky environments. So this species is found in the genus Agurnia, which again is closely related to blue tongues, but not quite as closely as the slender blue tongues. But they're similar in many ways. Similar in body shape. They're similar, they give birth to live young, but they've got this, I don't know how you can see it, but while this guy's smooth as a baby's bum, this guy's got keeled scales. Every single scale's got a spine that points backwards. And basically, it means he's saxicolous. And what saxicolous means, if you want a fancy word to tell your biology teacher, most of your teachers wouldn't have heard of it. Saxicolous means an animal or plant that is dependent on rocks. And this is saxicolous. So Cunningham skinks live in the cracks between rocks. And because all these little spines point backwards, if he runs in head first, it means you can't pull him out backwards. The spines will stick in. So they're very cool adaptation. What are the Aussie legalities about cruising Australia and catching, filming, re-releasing snakes? Does it depend on which state you're in? Yeah, so different states is... Every state in Australia is wildly different, which is a pain. Like, I live on the border of two states. And when I do shows in South Australia, I only live an hour from South Australia. The South Australian side is pretty good, but still, I need to get an export permit from Victoria to export my animals out of Victoria. And I need an import permit from South Australia to import them into South Australia. In the afternoon, I turn around and come home. I need an export permit from South Australia and an import permit from Victoria. So I need four permits to do a show an hour from my house. Some states are more relaxed with the whole, filming catches and stuff like that. That being said, if you were coming to Australia, you've got a large enough base that you'd probably just write into whichever state you're visiting and say, look, this is what I'm doing. This is the educational benefit. You can get permits for filming. I don't know if I'd be eligible for them, but documentaries, they all go and catch them. I know lots of snake catchers that go and catch them and put their videos up and they do fine. And then you'll get somebody who'll do the same thing and they'll have Parks and Wildlife knock on their door. So, only if you come along. If you come to Australia, I will be there. If you come to Australia, surely Australia will let me drive around Australia. But if you come to Australia, I will be there, mate. I've got some friends who live up in Townsville, Cairns, who have got some good spots to find, like scrub pythons and things like this. Cool stuff. And saltwater crocodiles. Your Nile crocs are cool, but saltwater crocodiles. Real crocodiles. Cactus frog, you know about the rabbit rats. I don't remember this rabbit rat. Can you keep Australian spadefoot frogs? I don't know. In some states you might be able to. Still think New South Wales is the worst system. I like Victoria's system with regards to what we can keep. Because in New South Wales I couldn't keep my dingo, I couldn't keep my crocs, I couldn't keep my wombat and possums and all sorts of stuff. Hey, you prickle. So Victoria's permits are good in what I can keep. The thing is, we still have to do everything manually. So I still have to fax off my permits. I didn't even know fax still existed. So we are a bit in the Stone Age, but we're relatively relaxed with what we can keep. The only thing is we only update that list every 10 years. So New Zealand, New Zealand certainly has no snakes. In fact, you're not allowed to own any snakes in New Zealand because they've got no native snakes. No reptiles room, actually said. Yeah, I'd be up in Queensland in a heartbeat. I cut my teeth into reptiles. Real crocs. I'm sorry, Dingo, I had to say it. But yeah, so I cut my teeth in wildlife working in North Queensland doing crocodile shows with real crocodiles twice a day. And I looked after koalas and all sorts of stuff. But I worked at a zoo in North Queensland. I'd be up there in a heartbeat. I love North Queensland. But my beautiful missus likes it here in Western Victoria. But she did tag me in the house for sale in Queensland today. So maybe. But my eyes are getting bad. But yeah, I'd be in Queensland in a heartbeat, but my family's here. And I can't keep a lot of my animals up there. Cats are not native to Australia. They kill a lot of wildlife. Yet we're allowed to keep them as pets, so why not be allowed to keep natives? They don't destroy wildlife. Good point. And keeping wildlife as pets is a really sort of tricky issue. I get both sides. I'm obviously very much pro keeping wildlife. People who are anti-keeping wildlife, they say it's going to increase poaching. They're worried about people going out the bush and collecting them because now they're worth money. And I get it, but the reality is a lot of those people don't really already work with wildlife. In fact, it probably lowers poaching because currently most animals that are poached from the wild in Australia are sent overseas because in Australia, take shingleback lizards for example. I'll get a shingleback out. Take shingleback lizards for example. Yeah, this time of this lizard here in Australia is worth about $200. Overseas, it's worth $5,000 to $10,000. So if people don't want to poach it in Australia because it's not worth going to jail for $200. But a lot of people poach these and send them overseas. Now, by letting people keep and breed things in Australia, a lot of reptiles get to a point where people are still smuggling, and it's not good, but they're smuggling captive-born animals because it becomes easier to buy one off Gumtree, dodgy up paperwork and stuff, and send it out than to buy a four-wheel drive and drive around the desert looking for things. So, in a weird way, licensing wildlife often reduces the amount of poaching. The other thing is, a lot of people who want to keep wildlife, they'll say, well, it's great because we're going to have huge populations of captive stuff, and if they go extinct, we can just re-release them. And that's not going to happen. This guy here, great example. If shingleback lizards disappeared in Queensland, I can't just release my shingleback lizards in Queensland. My shingleback lizards, they're all captive born, but they're descendants of animals born around northern Victoria, southern New South Wales. So they're going to be different shape, different colour than other ones. So there's really no conservation benefit in far as population goes. But we learn a lot. A lot of stuff that zoos use, a huge amount of what zoos use to breed reptiles and amphibians and birds was pioneered by private keepers because we're not tied down to the same, this is how you have to do it, as zoos and wildlife parks are. So we learn a lot about it. And the other big thing, a lot of wildlife carriers who are anti-keeping native wildlife in captivity are also constantly complaining about how hard it is to find vets who treat wildlife. But you've got to think for a second, if you're a vet and you're going to a university and you're accumulating a $100,000, $150,000 HEX debt that you've got to pay off, the animals you're going to specialize in are the animals that people pay you to look at. Now, wildlife carriers don't have much money to pay you. So you're going to specialize in cats, dogs, horses. People spend a lot of money on horses. Specialize in those. The more we have, well, it's only been the last sort of decade, we've got reptile vets who do nothing but reptiles because there is enough people keeping reptiles to make it worth studying reptile medicine. If we have more and more people keeping possums or wallabies or bettongs, and I'm not saying they should replace cats or dogs. It's a big mistake. It does irk me when people say, oh, we should get rid of cats and have quolls. I've had quolls. Quolls are cool animals. But if you want a cat and you get a quoll, you're going to be really disappointed. They're not the same thing. If you want a cool, different native Australian animal and you're happy to put the work into that, then a quoll could be good. But the more people that keep those animals, the more vets will actually say, well, it's worth me specialising in that. And the more access wildlife carriers for wild injured animals will have to knowledgeable vets. So there is a bunch of benefits to keeping native Australian animals. Put this guy back, and maybe we'll get out our brown snake. I can't keep tomorrow awake too long. I'll have a quick drink. By the way, guys, if you are interested in helping us out there, we now have merch. We've got Wicked Wildlife mugs. Excuse me. Oh. Wicked Wildlife on one side and Be Nice to Wildlife on the other. We're getting rowdy out, I promise. And we have got hoodies. Whoop. Hoodies, t-shirts, things like this. And our Patreon supporters, you guys get 20% off. If you're a Patreon supporter and you're not already in the Patreon Facebook group, let me know. We'll sort it out. You can do that. So, thought about Wicked Wildlife beanies. After all, I'm from Victoria. I am from Victoria. I should get beanies. They do have an option for beanies, but I can only do so much stuff. People have to buy what I've got. I've got. Not sure which animals are suitable. Thanks for our native expert wildlife. Help decide. Yeah, so yeah, some of our native animals make good potential pets, others don't. COVID wildlife with that sneeze. Oh, I've got some mean hay fever going on. All right, we'll get out our brown snake. I'll rearrange this a little bit because we never know how he's going to go. Some days he'll come out and he'll be a puppy dog, and other days he'll come out and he just won't sit still. We're going to get out one more snake, and then I've got a cute, new, fluffy, adorable animal that our Patreon supporters have met that you haven't. So we can have a look at that as well. But I've been leaving it till last because if I cuddle this cute, fluffy, adorable animal and then I take out snakes, they're going to want to eat me. Mugs finally... Oh, your mug's finally in Australia. Sammy's bought a bunch of mugs. Rowdy. All right, rowdy. We'll get out Rowdy. So Rowdy here is one of our 2 eastern brown snakes. You're going to play nice today. Good boy. So Rowdy here is one of our 2 eastern brown snakes. So this is the second most venomous snake on earth. I can't really see if I'm in frame for you guys. Second most venomous snake on earth. Leading cause of snake bite in Australia. And the reason for this is, not because he's got a malicious sort of intent. Though, every second farmer in Australia will tell you brown snake. If you go to a place where you find brown snakes, every farm will tell you the brown snake's the meanest snake in the world. Go to a place you don't get brown snakes, but you get tiger snakes. And every farm will tell you, oh, brown snakes are bad, but those tiger snakes, they're horrible. Go to North Queensland, it's, oh, taipans, every taipan wants to eat you. No matter where you live, the local snake seems to be the worst snake on earth. It's just because people want to brag about what they've got. But the eastern brown snake, these guys can be a little twitchy, but the reason these guys bite so many people, it basically comes down to distribution. The eastern brown snake is found in the entire eastern third of Australia. So almost all of Queensland, all of New South Wales, most of Victoria, most of South Australia, and parts of the Northern Territory around Alice Springs. So what, 60% of the Australian population, maybe a bit more, is going to come in contact, probably 80% of the Australian population lives in brown snake habitat. So because of this, it makes sense that the eastern brown snake is going to bite a lot more people than, say, the taipan. The coastal taipan, in my opinion, more dangerous snake to handle than the eastern brown. But it doesn't bite that many people in Australia. It lives in a thin belt along the coast of Queensland and Northern Territory in fairly dense habitat. Taipans don't like living, in houses, whereas the eastern brown snakes, these guys will live under your house. They don't care. So that means that they come in contact with a lot of people. So taipans might be more dangerous to handle, in my opinion, but brown snakes, they bite people because of distribution and proximity to people. But so they bite people because they're near people. It's not because they're mean snakes. It's not because they're out to get people. I'm trying to tell everybody how nice you are. But yeah, so that's why. It just happens that they're the second most venomous snake in the world. Have a fairly potent neurotoxic venom. And they've also got venom that affects your blood. You basically start bleeding. You get bitten by an eastern brown snake, you start bleeding through your nose, your ears, your eyes, old cuts. They stop your body's ability to clot. So it's not a pleasant bite by any stretch of the imagination. But they do have a propensity for dry bites. Something like 80% of eastern brown snake bites don't require any antivenom. Partially because they've got very short fangs. So most people who are bitten by eastern brown snakes, if genes are pretty good snake bite protection for this species. If you're bitten by a coastal taipan, genes are not going to stop it. If you're bitten by an eastern brown, there's a good chance genes will stop it. Boots certainly will. So short fangs mean that not all venom gets through, but also these guys have a sort of pretty big reputation for giving warning bites. They'll bite, and if you don't get the hint, they'll bite again and give you a full dose. Interestingly, a lot of people like talking about how, you know, baby snakes are more venomous than adult snakes for some obscene reason, and it's simply not true. Most species of snakes, their venom is the same from the day they're born to the day they die. The eastern brown snake does actually change in venom composition as they grow up, but it's actually kind of the other way around. When they're born, and not all areas, but we have found that some eastern brown snakes, when they're born, have a venom that works very, very efficiently on reptiles, because when they're born, they live off skinks. Now, as they grow up, they eat more and more mammals, so their their venom will actually change to become more efficient at killing a mammal. And unfortunately, we're mammals. Now, they're not designed to kill people, they're designed to kill the mouse or the rat. But the reason we test medical stuff on mice and rats is because what kills a rat will also kill a person. So, because of that, you could argue that these guys get more dangerous to people as they grow up. Also, the bigger the snake, the bigger the fangs, the bigger the venom glands, a bigger snake is 9 out of 10 times going to be a worse bite than a smaller one. But very cool snakes. We'll put you away, and we can get out this little peep animal. All right. Cool, eh? We'll answer some questions, and then I'll get out the lucky last animal for the night, huh? What's the most aggressive snake in Australia? I don't like the word aggressive, but Eastern Browns will certainly stand up and say, here I am pissed off. Eastern Browns will approach you in an open area. So, you know, Eastern Browns would be up there, coastal taipans, hard to handle snakes. I handle snakes as good as dingo. I don't know if I haven't had the exposure that dingo has to the variety snakes. I'm comfortable handling the snakes that I work with. But in Australia, we work with Australian snakes. So I'm lucky that I've got a lot of exposure to my snakes. TF, thank you very much for the super chat. Look, dingo a real snake. Oh, don't say that. I can tease dingo about real crocs, but he's got some very, very serious snakes over there. You wish I could do a video on the powerful owl. If a facility with a powerful owl invites me to do it, I will do it. Blows my mind how comfortable professional snake handlers like you are with such deadly snakes. Gives me such appreciation. Yeah, so people ask me with snakes, they say, you know, aren't you scared? And I don't want to say I'm scared, but there is a level of caution, you know, like over time, if you don't have any level of caution, if you're scared, you're not thinking logically. The logical side of your brain just turns off and you're getting bad situations. But you do have to have a level of caution. You're handling an animal that can kill you. It sounds weird. It sounds like, you know, you're playing it down. I have the same level of caution when I'm handling snakes as if I hop on a green broke horse. My partner breaks in horses, and for the last 6 years, I've been a crash test dummy. She'll break them in and I'll be the first person to get on them. And 9 out of 10 times I'll be fine, and 1 out of 10 times I'll want to explode. So I have the same level of caution that. But I feel the same when I pull my car out onto a highway that I haven't driven on before. You know, you're aware, you're cautious, you do everything you can to make it as safe as you can, and then you just got to take it as it comes and adapt. So, in a weird way, driving a car, to me, to somebody who's done it before and knows what they're doing, is the same as handling venomous snakes. Send some flowers to my hospital bed. Is that me? Aggression is always defense. In my opinion, the most aggressive snake is the one that feels vulnerable. Yeah, so you couldn't, yeah, calling it aggressive isn't incorrect, but being aggressive is the best defense in some situations. So a snake can act aggressively in order to defend itself. Makes sense? You know, no different to, you know, the dingo's example was, you know, you go and walk up to a rhino, it's going to charge you. It's charging you because it wants you to leave it the hell alone, but it's an aggressive maneuver. Or, you know, I work with livestock for a living. I've met plenty of aggressive cattle that'll, you know, definitely put you over the fence. But the goal is to get you over the fence. It's not to catch you and pummel you in the ground. They'll do it if you don't get out of the way, but that's the goal. Is your driving car analogy, statistically speaking, far more dangerous? Yeah, so driving the car is certainly far more dangerous. When I'm handling a snake, it's me and the snake, and there's things that I can do, you know, like if you guys watch every week, you'll know there's some weeks where I say, look guys, I'm not feeling well, we're not going to do venomous snakes. If I've had something to drink or if I'm on any medication. I'll basically try to avoid handling venomous snakes, or I certainly won't handle them for a live stream, you know. If I have to handle them to clean, I can pull one out, put it in a tub, clean the tank. But to pull one out and talk to you guys, I won't do it unless I'm feeling good. When I drive a car, I don't know what everybody else is like, if they're in the right state of mind. So yeah. Australian keelbacks immune to cane toad venom. I've been trying to do a video on keelbacks for ages. I just don't know anybody with them. They are immune, but it's a bit of a myth that they can just chow down cane toads as much as they like. Keelbacks can eat cane toads, but it actually, scientists have done the maths and figured out it takes as much energy to break down the toxin as they get out of it. So they can live off cane toads, and even though they'll be full and they won't die of poisoning, they'll slowly starve from the energy it requires to break down bufotoxins, which is the toxins cane toads have. So yeah, pretty scary stuff. All right, guys, are you ready for the last? Jennifer, how are you? I haven't seen you for a while. Had my reminder on. Good to hear. All right, we'll get out our last animal for the night. I'll pick him up and I'll keep him in my hands. But we have a new animal. My Patreon supporters have all met him or seen him, but he hasn't been on a video yet. And he's been making lots of noise. You just want to see everybody. His name is Heihei. And this is Heihei. So Heihei is about 8 days old, and he's a baby emu. I say he, we don't know if it's a boy or a girl, but you can't tell the sex of emus until they're adults, and that's going to be 12 months away. But Heihei is a baby emu, and he came to us. His dad hatched them out with emus. Mums don't do anything. Mums lay their eggs in a nest, and they disappear, and they find another bloke, and they lay some more eggs in his nest. And the male, he could be hatching his own eggs. He could be hatching yesterday blokes, but they're good dads. Unfortunately, the friend of ours who had emus, when they were hatched, this little chick was born just a little bit later and had wonky legs to start off with and couldn't keep up and was going to get left behind. Wasn't keeping up with the baby, so they took it inside and they needed a home for it. So we're going to have Heihei for the next 6 months or so until he's big enough to go back out and live on a farm somewhere. And he's going to go and visit lots of schools and hopefully teach lots of people about wildlife and how cool emus are. So we have Heihei, the baby emu. Hey Nick, I'll give you a couple of bucks to say emu. We got the emu. The Australian emu is found on the plains of Central Australia. So yeah, emus. We've got a couple of different subspecies of emus. We just call them all emus. But where's the signature hat? It's nighttime and I'm inside. I wear the hat a lot. But yeah, no hat for live streams. How do I care for an emu chick? Have incubators for chicks. If I was keeping them, you know, like, and I didn't have the reptile room, I'd need to keep him under lights because he would still be sitting under his dad. But in the reptile room, I'm sweating. In the reptile room, it is 26 degrees like all the time. I've got enclosures on everywhere. So yeah, it stays warm enough in here. Maybe Yankee the emu. Well, we called him Heihei. My partner came up with the word Heihei, which she didn't like me getting an emu, so we stuck with her name to cheer her up. My daughter desperately wants to call it emu wigglebum, so it became Heihei. I'm not going to say that. What is the normal temperature I keep my reptiles? The ambient temperature in this room, when the lights are all on during the day, is 26 degrees sometimes. Under lights, directly under my lights, depending on the enclosure. So some enclosures, like the Lacey's got higher wattages than the other lights. It could go from, 29 to directly under these Lacey's lights, it gets 42 degrees or so. So, have I had much to do with cassowaries? I used to look after a cassowary called Yarrabah. He was very cool. He was very scary. But he was very cool. We'd have to go to his enclosure with a rake. And Yarrabah was friendly, but the issue is friendly cassowaries are often more dangerous to work with because he had no fear of us. So he wouldn't, run up and just kick you to bits, but he'd follow you around and get closer. You'd be raking his enclosure and you'd turn around and he's only a meter away. You have to lift your rake up, look really big, and he'd sort of walk off and he'd watch you. And then he'd sneak back up again. But yeah, cassowaries are pretty intense birds. 26 degrees, yeah. Thank you. I don't know how to convert Celsius to Fahrenheit for the people in other parts of the world. Sydney, thank you very much for the super chat. I do have my signature blue shirt on tomorrow. I got home at lunch and told Liz, you better wash my blue shirt. I didn't have any clean. So, yeah, can't do a stream without at least a... Thank you. Congratulations for reaching 15,000. Thank you very much, mate. Maybe... So, yeah, we're going to work on a few videos on emus over the next 6 months while we've got Heihei here. Have I ever wanted to show cassowary? I'd love to show you the cassowary. The thing is, I can only show animals that I can get access to. I don't like, and a lot of channels do it really well, but I don't like doing videos with animals that I can't be like, here is an emu. These are the videos people like watching from us, you know? You don't want to see me on a green screen and a picture of an animal in the background. There's lots of channels that do that very well. I don't. I like, here it is. So if I can get to Townsville and to the zoo I used to work at, they said I can film up there, but we can't visit Queensland. I could probably film with their cassowary. You're falling asleep. When he falls asleep, he looks dead. It's terrible. Wakey, wakey. A thorny devil's cold-blooded. Yeah, they are. So cold-blooded's not... People used to call all reptiles cold-blooded. And I get it. It makes sense. We're warm-blooded, so they're cold-blooded. But it's a bit of a misleading term. So, like, the lace monitor here, you can see down the bottom. Oh, you probably can't see her. But she's right under this rock. She's sitting under a 45-degree light. So her body temperature is probably warmer than mine. So we can't really call her cold-blooded. Ectothermic is a better word. So we're endothermic. Endo means inside, thermic is temperature. So we're inside temperature. It's because we create our own heat. Our heat comes from inside. Reptiles are what we call ectothermic because their heat comes from outside. So they actually have their own preferred body temperatures, just like we want to be on a 36.8. A lot of reptiles have their own temperatures, and some of them are around that. Goannas particularly want to be very hot. But they're not able to make that heat themselves. They have to go and do it behaviorally. So they'll sit in the sun. If she wants to get to 42 degrees, she'll sit in the sun until she's 45 degrees. And then she'll go sit in the shade for a little bit. And then she'll come back out in the sun. And then she'll go in the shade. So, how old do emus live? To be honest, I can't recall. I did know that, but we'll look it up. Was going to send me a super chat. Oh, thank you anyway, Baku. Can I show how the lace monitor's doing? I'm not going to get the lace monitor out tonight, especially after playing with the emu. She's going to think I'm feeding her, and I don't want to have to get stitches. Pity the Maori wiped out the mowers. Yeah, the Maori did wipe out the mowers. That being said, like, we can go, oh, the Maori wiped out the mowers. Europeans wiped out a lot of animals. Native Americans wiped out a lot of animals. Aboriginals, when they arrived here, wiped out a lot of animals. Every culture ever to reach any place has wiped out a bunch of animals. The difference is the traditional cultures. The Maori, the indigenous Australians, the Native Americans. When they first arrived, they wiped out a bunch of animals. And I'm pretty sure eventually they decided there's no more mammoths, or there's no more moa, or there's no more diprotodon in Australia left. We better learn how to start living with this ecosystem before we starve. Whereas now we wipe out these animals. We wipe out endangered marsupials and the like. And we say, she'll be right. We'll just run more sheep. Don't worry. So, yeah. All cultures have done the same mistake. The other thing is we're able to do it a lot faster. So, can live upwards of 10 years. Yeah, I reckon I've met emus that are in their teens, but like I've not worked with a single emu from birth till death. You know, like I've met several emus that were, I reckon, over 10, but we'll wait and see. Does Heihei sleep a lot? Yeah, so like any baby, he's only 8 days old. He'll sleep whenever he's cradled. So at this age, he'd still be hiding under his dad. So whenever he feels warm, he goes to sleep. Don't ya? But yeah, during the day he's been running around the front yard and running around with my kids and helping doing the weeding and stuff. But all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed meeting Heihei. How is this not cute? But so today we've had a good live stream. We've seen brown snakes and tiger snakes and olive pythons and lizards and all sorts of stuff. And you guys have been amazing. We've reached 15,000 subscribers, which is a huge milestone, and I want to thank each and every one of you for that. Particularly, of course, I want to thank our Patreon supporters because you guys are amazing. We wouldn't be here without our Patreon supporters. But, you know, just every viewer, all that goes a long way. If you do want to help out the channel, though, of course, you can support us on Patreon, and there's a bunch of perks. We've got a Facebook group, which is just for Patreon supporters, so you can talk to me anytime you want. You can talk to each other. We're trying to build a bit of a community there. They get to see our videos early if I get them edited in time, but they also get a discount on like the private Zoom sessions that we're looking at doing. They get a discount on merch, but not everybody can do it. Fine. There's a bunch of other things. If we've got our merch, you can buy a jumper, a t-shirt, a mug, whatever. Simplest thing though, if you really want to support the channel, make sure you leave a thumbs up in our videos, leave a comment on them, show your friends, because the bigger we get, the more facilities we can start to visit and the more wildlife we can show. And that's what we want to do. You know, we want to build a channel that we can teach the world about Australian wildlife, because our wildlife is just kind of cool. Like, how can you not like Australian wildlife? I love all wildlife, but conservation has to start at home. So, yeah, we'll wrap things up there, guys. We've been here just over an hour, but it's been a great day. Thank you very much for all of you. Thank you for helping us reach 15,000 subscribers, and have a good one, guys. We'll see you next week. We do this same time every week, but between now and then, be nice to wildlife. Have a good one. Take care.